Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
There's only so many times you can hit a brick wall before your hand starts to ache. There's only so many times you can run in circles before you lose your pace. And sure, all of that preparation might be going a waste if you fall at the final hurdle, but it keeps moving further away. So Angie, I so see why you're leaving it. Oh Angie, I so see why you're leaving it. Yeah. Dad said there was something missing from his life, but you know that there's not. 'Cause you've stood right at the edge and you've seen all that it's got. And so Angie, I so see why you're leaving it. Oh Angie, had a lot of steps in the right direction, just not enough to get you there. Well, now you know you can't make anyone feel something just because you care. And I know that you care. So Angie,
What's up, everybody? I have Ewan Merritt from the awesome band Bad Sounds out of beautiful England, across the pond from where we are over here, New York, New Jersey. So welcome to the show, Ewan. How you doing, man?
I'm all good, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's bright. The sun's out, so I can't really complain today. And I'm talking to you, so you know things are looking up. So, I mean, let's go right into Escaping from a Violent Time. Volume 3 dropped recently. Why don't you give us a little background of, I guess I want to start off with, I mean, we're on Volume 3, right? What's the process behind the volumes of Escaping a Violent Time so far?
Well, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of changed from the original idea we had, where it was like, originally... So we put out our debut album, I think 2018.
Yeah,
maybe
2018. I think.
Yeah. So we did that and kind of just found like the process of putting out an album quite
exhausting.
Well, no, it's more like it almost just like very anticlimactic. Like, I think definitely the way the music industry works in the UK for a new band, depending on, you know, your label, blah, 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 it almost felt like it was all go until the day the album came out. And then it was like everything sort of just slowed down. Do you know what I mean? And I think for us, it just felt like there was a whole bunch of tracks on the album that we were more excited about than maybe some of the singles that we never really got to give a proper light to, you know. So we kind of decided the next time we did an album's worth of material, we thought it would be better to do it in 3 EPs so we could kind of give each one its own space, if you know what I mean, rather than just doing an album and feeling like you only get to show people a third of it. It's basically us being extremely self-indulgent in ourselves and being like, no, you need to listen to them all. But yeah, so it kind of started as that idea, right? And then it's kind of, we were talking about it the other day where it's like, so that group of, so the label and stuff we were working with on the first album, we got dropped about the time we just started writing some of the stuff for the first Escaping from a Violent Time volume. And we kind of went through this period of not knowing what we were doing. And then luckily, kind of like over the few years that that's happened, we did a few co-writes for people that went well. And then a few other things happened. And then more labels and publishers got in contact, and things are okay again and good and positive, and we're very lucky to be doing what we do. But I guess what I'm saying is it's like, it feels like all these songs, these Escaping from a Violent Time stuff, have all been through this period of us kind of going from like our shittest moment where we'd been dropped and had no idea what we were going to do to kind of trying to work out our own path. And then by the time we're actually releasing the third and then the next one, the fourth, it's sort of like, it feels like we've gone from our rock bottom to back where we want to be, you know?
Yeah. And from the point where like you got dropped, right? And this is kind of the stuff that drives me fucking crazy about the music industry, right? You guys had some really good success going into the first album. And I don't know what the thought process is behind some of the pricks, sit behind record label fucking desks, and all of a sudden that success isn't 100% as fast and immediate when an album comes out, and then you just drop somebody. I mean, how did you pick yourself back up to just be like, to want to continue to do this? Because that's a hard thing to see, a little bit of success going into your first album, and then your album comes out and then all hell breaks loose. How do you pick up those pieces and, to continue, man?
Well, I think the hardest thing of it is it's not just that you feel like you're failing. It's that you feel like you're failing so publicly, like in front of your friends and family and people who have become fans of the band or whatever. It's almost like you feel like they can all see that suddenly some funding has gone and you're no longer kind of getting put into spots that you once were, blah, blah, blah. So I think that was kind of the shittest feeling. It's quite like an embarrassing feeling, you know. And then I would also say though, like, although I agree there are many pricks in the industry, I don't think anybody on our first label was that. It's just, I think we were the wrong fit. And also we were kind of, because like me and Callum grew up in the middle of nowhere and had always done everything very DIY, we kind of didn't let anybody else ever get involved in what we were doing. And every time the label had an idea, we'd basically say no. And we didn't think it was being like, malicious and it wasn't intended in that way. It was just more like we had a real like clear way we wanted to do something, and we kind of wanted to be the ones to do it as well. And I think looking back, we probably came off a bit like standoffish, and and we kind of
Well, you had your vision.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't change anything about the record, but I think there's maybe like we could have picked our battles a bit better, you know, like maybe had less arguments about things we posted on social media, or, you know, just things that really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So basically, sorry, I'm very bad at just jumping around topics, so do feel free to pull me back if I go.
You're fine.
But basically, that period, the label had 100% checked out before the album came out. So I think I sent like an email like a month before the album came out to everybody at our label, just being like, I'm so grateful for all of you kind of like giving us this opportunity to do the thing we've always wanted to do. It means so much to us to be able to put out an album, blah, blah, blah. And literally, I think one person replied, and it was like, it was kind of the person who was a bit more like our age at the label and we were a bit more friends with. But it kind of like, I think that was quite a good indication of they knew, unless I guess the album suddenly blindsided everybody and sold 1 million in its first week, I think everybody was already aware that we weren't going to be getting picked up for a second, you know. So it's not like we had no indication that was coming, but I think it was more just trying to find a way for us to move forward, you know, when there wasn't that. It felt like we'd kind of had the opportunity and blown it, so we didn't really know what you do after that. But yeah, so I guess that's how it felt. Did I answer your question, or did I just ramble about a load of nonsense?
Hey, we got a little bit of both, and that's perfect
Okay,
for
cool.
a long form show. So we're good. Now, picking up the pieces from that, I mean, did you sit back and take stock right away of what happened and how you felt you were going to move forward, or was it just a straight, all right, that's done, let's continue on doing what we want to do our way?
Well, we always kept writing, and I think that was partly in a sense of denial of like, we'll just keep making music and eventually it will line up. And we thought we'd be able to get another deal somewhat easily. Like we were on kind of a major before, so we didn't think we'd get that, but we thought we'd get something quite quickly. But it didn't really happen that way. Like all the places we thought were gonna reach out didn't. And I guess to also say this was like kind of just before COVID as well, so all that stuff where maybe we would have been having meetings and stuff was during lockdown. So yeah, no, we didn't really know what to do. We just kept writing, and it kind of sorry, I'm jumping around again. Sorry, this must be so frustrating to listen to. So I'm just sort of remembering it in the right order, and then I've got it. But right, so this is what happened. We were lucky enough that we'd done a writing session with our friends Broods, who we met just because they reached out and wanted to try something together. So we wrote a song with them, and then they invited us to go on tour with them, which was amazing. But then anyway, we did this song with them, and they decided not to put it out. And we were like, well, we'd kind of like to put it out, if that's okay with you. And then Arlo Parks heard that song and asked us to do some stuff on a track she was working on. And then that got cut for the album. And then I think that made it a lot easier to get, then it was a lot like easier to do publishing stuff, and then we started doing some more songwriting for people because that thing had happened, and then blah, blah, blah. So we didn't really have a goal. We just kind of kept writing. And I guess like Broods really did us a massive solid there by kind of giving us a bit of a chance and helping us when no one else was really looking to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, that's some of the stuff that works out well in the industry is, becoming friends and partners with other artists and who may have had similar experiences or not similar experiences at all, but just knowing what it takes and how hard it can be to kind of like just do that solid and help someone out and believe in you, I guess is a thing to see too, is that there's still belief in you when someone drops you and then someone still wants to be a part and do songs with you. I think that belief may be something that is like, oh, all right, so it's still here. There's something here. There's no reason to not continue doing what we're doing.
100%, man. Yeah. And I think as, the nice thing about that is I do find it always comes from other artists, who I guess they've been through it as well. Everybody has ups and downs in the industry. But I think like we had another similar, or not that similar, but we had another incident where we went in for a meeting with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, where they were just doing like a whole day of meeting with potential artists, right, to work with. And we played them some stuff we were working on, and they were so complimentary about it and so like, I don't know, just like seemed really genuinely like they were taking the time to listen to it and give us their opinions. And yeah, that went a huge way for us in terms of that confidence boost when we really needed it, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean that's all it takes sometimes is one person to believe in you a little bit to know that you can continue excuse me, doing what you love. I mean, because it takes a lot to put your heart and soul out there on the line for people to judge, right? Because that's what you're doing with your music is you're pouring every ounce of energy of things that you love in life and giving someone else the opportunity to tell you if it's good or not, which is really fucking hard.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if I see it that way in terms of like, I don't know, maybe it's the same thing, but I think sometimes it just makes like when you feel like you're not doing a good job or like people aren't into what you're doing, you're like, I kind of dedicated my life to this thing and I'm still not very good at it. And I think that's the more like demotivating side for me, at least.
Wow. All right, let's dive a little bit into your life in music. When you were growing up, I mean, what was music to you? Like, do you remember the first time you heard, this beautiful sonic sound that completely changed your mind as a child of what you thought music was or could be?
So I guess like many kids, I really loved like Michael Jackson, and that's a bad sentence to say, isn't it? But I really was, yeah, like growing up. Obviously, like my parents had like a VHS of his videos, and that's the first music I remember like really loving. But it could have been as much the videos as anything, even though the
because
music
they were
was
movies.
incredible.
Those were movies to music. I mean that was Michael Jackson's videos were completely different than what most people could do.
100%, yeah. And I think like, yeah, I'm not sure I would have been so into just listening to the music because I think I was quite a scatty kid and just didn't have a very long attention span and all that kind of thing. But so then when I was like 10, started playing the guitar, and I started playing the guitar because my dad played a bit of guitar, and Callum, who's in Bad Sounds, my older brother, he was already playing guitar, so it kind of just seemed like a logical thing to do, and then by the time I was sort of like 11, I think it was pretty clear the athletic life was not for me. And I, had no natural ability or interest in any sport. So I think you kind of just naturally end up doing the alternative or some alternative, right? Because everybody else is going that lane. So my group of friends became music people, and then me and Callum started like a rock band when we were kids at school.
What was the name of that band?
We were called Uranium, right? And we were called Uranium because it's the heaviest element, and we were the heaviest band ever.
Brilliant.
So that was like just with some friends. But I actually think I was doing all that and learning to play guitar, but I don't think I'd really gotten into music until a bit later, because the reason I mentioned the sports thing is because I kind of see that period of time as like getting fast at playing things on guitar was like a sport to me. You know, it was more about like showing off and trying to do something that was impressive. So we were doing all that, and then we'd also, like, when we'd go around our dad's at the weekends, he had like a 4-track cassette thing that we'd record demos on, and we've actually still got that at our studio. But yeah, so we were doing all that, and then I think when I was about 16, I went to college, and it was the first time I kind of recorded with a computer, and a lecturer there kind of introduced me to more like hip hop stuff and sampling things. And I think it kind of came from like the line from rock to there was like, I really liked Beck, and I saw Beck as a rock thing, but I kind of knew it was like the Odelay album, kind of knew it had those sampled things going on, but I didn't see that as a hip hop thing at the time. And then it was this lecturer that kind of made me realize that's what was going on. And then delving deeper into that, I just kind of started to develop a real love for those kind of old soul samples and things like that. And that's where I feel like kind of my taste started, if you know what I mean. I kind of feel like I learned how to play an instrument before I found my actual musical taste, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a different journey for everyone, right? Everybody figures out things at a different pace, and they figure out what they're going to love at a different pace, and your tastes change over time anyway.
Yeah, totally. But I am one of those people that whatever I'm into at that point of time, I'm convinced I'll be into it forever. And it's like, oh, this is the thing I've been looking for my whole life.
And then you put it on the shelf and forget about it. I mean, that's the hard part with music, right? You know, I tell people all the time, I sit here in the studio and I'm just surrounded by CDs, tapes, and vinyl. And half the time I start looking through stuff, I'm like, wow, I haven't listened to this in probably 15 years.
Yeah.
But you get to rediscover it again. Like, that's my favorite part about it is I haven't listened to it in 15 years. So when I put it on, it's, yeah, I know the sound, but it's like, I'm rediscovering it again. And then I go on that rabbit hole, right? And then I stay in that lane for the next 6 months of listening to that same type of stuff. And then it goes back on the shelf.
100%. And also, that's kind of an amazing feeling when you have that, because it's quite interesting when certain parts of it still really resonate with you and other parts you feel like don't so much anymore. It's almost like you've learned more about the genre, or you've had more exposure to that kind of music than when you first found it, for me at least. And then it's kind of like, it's like a different context around it when you come back.
Well, it's also too, sometimes you mature and you realize this was never good to begin with. I don't know why I like
it. Yeah, 100%.
Now, when you were growing up playing music and you and Colin were, you know, in a heavier band, what brought you guys to that? Was it you that were leading that sort of that funk soul background and sampling to the new, you know, I don't know what Uranium sounded like. I never got a chance to hear them, but to where Bad Sounds is, I mean, how big of a transition in your music was that?
Well, it was kind of a bit of a road to get there, because me and Callum were in Uranium in its different forms from about the time we were like 13, 14 to 16-ish. And then we went separately musically for a while. So I started getting into I bought like an MPC and was making kind of more like boom bap hip hop stuff. But Callum got more into kind of, I'd say it was like alt rock or stuff that had a bit more like pop sensibility about it than what we'd been listening to. And so he kind of learned the more like songwriting side of things. So I'd say that time we were separate, it was like 3 or 4 years. And then Callum had tried to move to London for a bit, and then he ran out of money, so he had to come home. So we were both kind of under the same roof with nothing going on for the first time in a few years. And we were like, oh, well, let's try and make something together. And I'd sort of built up a collection of samples and breaks and things at that point. And that was kind of the only way I knew how to do drums then. So Callum was kind of doing his sort of songwriting stuff he'd learned on top of those more like funk things. But I would say it kind of shifted the other way throughout the years, where Callum got really into the funk stuff, and he would kind of bring that to the forefront and try and like, he'd have like a different take on it, if you know what I mean, and he'd find ways to inject that into what we were doing. So I'd say it probably started with me, but I think Callum found a whole new side to it before we actually started making the music that came out as Bad Sounds. You know, it was definitely coming from both of us by that point.
Now, if no one ever heard Bad Sounds, right? If no one ever heard of your band and your music, and you had to play him a song of yours that best described what it is you do, what song of yours, you know, this is where it's pick your favorite child. You can pick more than one, but what song would you play for that?
I think I would play Move Into Me, even though it's definitely not a good representation of our whole back catalogue. I just think it's the best one. But it's kind of, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's, for me, it has that thing that I think you're always trying to achieve, where it just feels like I can't really put my finger on what I think is good about it, but there's something that draws me in about that song. And when we were like mixing it, it's almost like I'm scared to touch things, because I'm like, I know that it's making me feel something the way it is right now. So, you know, so I don't want to mess that up. And I think that's kind of what we're always shooting for. So it's a good example of a time we managed to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that you had it right at the, you know, the forefront of your mind, that's what you would play for someone. Because I know it's hard when each song is like a child. That's why I call it pick your favorite child, because you put so much energy into it, that when you're creating it. And I love how you're doing the volumes, because you talked about not wanting to scrap something on a full album, and putting this out there. I mean, are you looking to continue doing, you know, volume 4, 5, 6, and continue this road? Because I think it's a unique thing, right? That you're doing with your music that way, because this can go on forever, dropping 4 to 6 songs every 6 months to a year. And at the end of it, you could be on volume 20 and then put out an awesome discography for a shit ton of money.
Well, I think, I don't really know. I'm kind of not against it. I know there definitely will be a volume 4. But I think maybe we might sort of wrap up the Escaping from a Violent Time thing then, because like I said, that collection of songs does definitely feel like it was written in a space where we were trying to find ourselves again. And I think it feels a little like, you know, we're just in a different place mentally now.
Yeah, you can leave it sit as a part of, you know, history and time. Like,
yeah, totally. But I think, I don't know, another thing of the doing it that way was like, me and Callum are very big music fans and love the concept of an album as a whole and what it's all about, and kind of making a world for people. But I also think there's an element of us not wanting to be that person who is just trying to relive or like live out what their heroes did, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a thing people go back and forth on all the time of like, is an album still relevant now, blah, 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 which I do think it is. Like, I still listen to things as albums. I don't really listen to like playlists much or things like that. But I think for us, it just didn't feel like it made sense to do an album right now. It's kind of like, I don't know, it just, with the way people are consuming music and like where our budgets are at, it's kind of like, I wouldn't really want to do an album until it's like we're going to press it to vinyl and shit like that again, so hopefully there'll be a time for that again. But I think getting to do it the first time and ticking that off our bucket list, so to speak, kind of allowed us to be able to do things in different ways and not feel like, oh, it's all about doing an album for us. It's kind of, we're just happy to put out music in any way we can.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought up that point of where the music industry is, and I do think it's extremely hard for artists to find a way to put out an album, because everyone's attention span is so short. And in today's world, if you put out an album and it sits out there for 2 years, it's almost like you're an afterthought. You're almost forgotten about, unless you are, the world's biggest band, unless you're Taylor Swift, where everyone's, champing at the bit to hear the next thing that comes out. But for a majority, the majority of artists, if you put out an album, and it takes a lot of time to put it together and get it out there. So in that entire space and time, it sucks, because you do kind of become an afterthought of the way people consume music nowadays, where it is a playlist, where it is everyone's Drake drops a song every fucking day, like that kind of stuff, where it's hard to, if you're not the biggest band in the world, it's hard to keep up and be relevant and have people always constantly follow you. And that's and I think that's one of the biggest detrimental things to where the music is today.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there. And I think part of it is like, for good or bad, social media is such a part of the music industry now. And it, like most of the people I work with, they would say they spend 90% of the time talking to their team about social media, and I personally find that extremely depressing. But I think one way is that like they're having to find something to post about all the time, because their music is coming out once every 2 years and in a 12 song format. So I think just like separating your releases at least gives them some way where they can keep the label happy by posting semi-regularly, but it's actually they're still posting about the thing they're trying to do, music, rather than, finding some other thing to try and post about. Not to go, I sound like such an old man, don't I? But you know what I mean?
No, I do.
Yeah.
Well, it's the hardest part about anything nowadays. I mean, that's what we try to do as a show too. Like, everything is so built around the social media format that it's almost like we're an old sport already as a show, right? It's trying to keep up, and people telling us, "Oh, you need a YouTube channel. You need to go on TikTok." And I'm like, I have fucking time for this stuff. Like, what do you mean I need to do this? I'm like, I'm talking to artists who I fall in love with and love their music and try to give them another place to get out. Why do I have to go do more shit? Like, it's so hard, and it's so hard to keep up and do all these things, because by the time you figure something out, right, it changes, and then you have to do this whole new thing. And now I'm just sounding like an old asshole who, I remember the good old days when we would write letters to people type of thing. But it really is, it's so hard to keep up.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I think it's like kind of it's a futile pursuit too, because I feel the people who really succeed at those things are people who genuinely enjoy doing it and are good at it, and also usually have a bit of luck with the timing and something taking off, and I think it's kind of like when you try to replicate that, I've never seen kind of like a formulated campaign come together like that where it's really worked for the person. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, I think I personally feel it's fine if someone is a social media star and a musician or whatever, but I just don't think you always have to be both. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like some bands people will go and see regardless of that. And I think it makes it a lot harder for labels and promoters to quantify, how many tickets that band can sell or how many albums they're going to sell when they can't see those numbers on their thing. But I feel it should be the label's job, right, to fucking get excited about music regardless of that shit and then make that stuff happen. Like it's like, what is their point anymore if they're just going to someone who already has a fan base and then telling them, oh yeah, we can put your music out under our name? It's like, I don't know. We're just going to get older and older, a bit men coming to here, aren't we?
I mean, and that's how it is, though. I mean, we see it happening, right? And we see these types of things and that quantification of numbers. I mean, we are in that statistical world. We are the likes, the followers, and that's how our life is judged, right? That's how you kind of feel what your worth is. And where, to me, sometimes people who have those 500,000 followers and I feel I can see right through them, they think they're the biggest thing in the world. Meanwhile, they're probably deathly alone in life, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I think it's all that, like, there's obviously a lot of smoke and mirrors that goes on with that stuff. But I just think it's so, like, unsustainable as well, like I don't know. I mean, admittedly, I've never been in a situation where I've had 500,000 followers. So maybe if I was in that, I'd be like, this is the fucking best.
Hey, I'm lucky I have 5, right? So
yeah.
Now, for you, when it comes to music and being around and surrounding your life with it and it being this enormous part for you, I mean, what has played a part in your life? Like, is there a band or an artist that you've always turned to for, say, inspiration, or turned to for, I call it the, band or artist that never lets you down, that you can always turn to during a good time or bad time to know you're just going to put it on? And some people categorize it as your favorite artist. I'd just go to an artist that never lets you down, that you can always turn to at all times.
That is a good question. I think I have that with albums. Like, there's an album called White Ladder by David Gray that was
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the fucking best. And I think like that is an album that I feel like I could just constantly have on repeat and would never get tired of it, And I think another thing I find really inspiring about that record is it's like just it sounds so done on a budget, and there's no real frills about it, and it's so unique to the whole like drum machine thing going against what is essentially a singer-songwriter album. I just think it kind of stands in its own lane, and I find that very inspiring. Yeah,
it was. I mean, White Ladder was amazing. I mean, because it was a huge departure, right, from Sell, and I mean, because it was a singer songwriter, but there were so many different aspects to it that brought exactly who he was to the forefront. And that's why I think what was so beautiful, and especially when you said that, I get the chills over here. David Gray holds a special place in my heart. It was the very last show I got to see with my sister before she passed, and so
really?
hearing that is like, I'm like, wow, there it is. There's that magical moment that connects us all, and the world feels right.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's horrible.
Not doing it for pity. I just letting you know, like, it was an awesome little, thing you
Yeah,
threw in there.
yeah, no, that's nice to hear. I've actually I had that with a friend's girlfriend recently, where she was saying that album was like a massive thing for her whole family, and he did like a kind of an album, sorry, like a tour where he was just playing White Ladder recently, and they all went to see it. And I didn't even realize it was on, because I would have fucking loved to have been there. But yeah, she said she just got chills like as soon as it came out, and then it just started. It literally played the album like start to finish. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff now that artists will do that, going back. And I mean, you get the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of an album coming out or whatever, and they just go out and they play that album. And I think that's what's great about albums too, is because you're going out, you're getting that album, and it's that refreshing memory of that moment that you had that album in your hand, or you put it in your CD player in your car. Old fogies again, CD player in a car or tape deck in a car, and just listening to it and enjoying that moment for what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that album is actually a really good example of why the album format, so many people love it so much, is because it does really feel like you put on a world when you put that album on. It all feels very cohesive, and it's in its own lane, and yeah.
It's that storytelling. And I think that's what, even a lot of albums that come out nowadays, they don't have that storytelling that yesteryear. And I'm doing this fucking old guy thing again. But where it would tell a story, and everything would transition seamlessly. And it just felt like this one big cohesive, here's 48 minutes of just a story that I have to tell, and then it's over.
Yeah, totally, man. I that's kind of the frustration I have with the other side of what we do, where because we do like co-writing and producing for other people, is kind of takes up most of our time, I would say now. But I find that really frustrating, that it feels like the industry is so stuck in this way of artists working with a different producer and writer on every single song. And it just means that they never develop an identity fully, it's sort of, or they can do, but it's really hard to hold on to it. And I don't know why I can't stop myself sounding like a bitter old man on this podcast. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. You bring up that one of my favorite movies about music is that the mockumentary Pop Star with Andy Samberg.
Oh, oh, yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
When
Okay,
he's like, the new album, I worked with 110 different producers and co-writers to make the best. And that's and it's so funny because it's so true to where we are today. And that's what I loved about it so much. I'm like, he's poking fun at everything, but it's exactly where the music industry is today, and it's hysterical.
Yeah, totally. But then, like, sometimes I guess like that 2000s era, there was a lot of that. If you listen to kind of an R&B or pop record from that time, it's like there's a lot of different producers on there, and almost every song sounds different. But I think the ones that have stood the test of time and people, really made a mark, only have one or two. And I'm sure it will go back to that. It's just frustrating from my point of view, because when you feel like you're getting onto something good with someone, and then their team is sort of like, okay, great, well, thanks for that, let's try something else over here. And you're like, oh, well, the way I think about it, right, it's like all those amazing bands that took, 10 years before they even released their first album. And it's like, what if they just didn't have that chance to kind of try stuff out together, and not try and write a single every time they were together, but just, experiment and make things work. And I think that's where a lot of exciting stuff comes from. And it's a shame that is sort of getting lost in this current way of doing things. But I mean, I'm just whinging about a very privileged situation, so I got to stop.
But there is, I mean, what I like to see, that there is still that that's still there, especially in certain genres of music. Watching a pop punk or emo, alternative, indie, they still have that. There's still bands out there that do that get to cut their teeth to figure out who they are going to be when they drop their first album, and then when you hear that album, you're just like, "Fuck, this is amazing." But because they had that 7 to 5 years together of figuring out what works and how to work things out, and some people stay true to form, which is awesome. They don't try to play that singles game, and you know, you have to do it, but at the same time, when you don't do it, I love you even more, because that's what frustrates me too, is when I hear a song and then I'm like, wow, this is really good, and then I go to look up the artist and there's only one other song to listen to. I'm like, well, shit. Almost anybody can write one good song. Like, now I got nothing. Now you go on the back burner and I forget about you.
Yeah, that's true for sure. Yeah, it's weird though, isn't it? Like, I don't know if you've ever had this, but do you ever have it where you go back and listen to something you were involved in, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, and it's like the sound seems so clear to you then, and it's like, oh, I can totally hear what this should have turned into. But at the time, it's like you just can't see it that way. It's just another thing you're working on.
No, absolutely, and that's one of the things that I tell artists all the time, that, you know, for me, it was always, you know, when you grow up and you're 14 years old and you're writing songs about, you know, love and heartache and all this kind of stuff, and you had no idea really what it was, right? You're trying to create this thing, and then you scrap it. And, you know, I've told people, hey, if you still have any of those writings or recordings, go back to them, because there could be something extremely special there that is different now to you, but now it can actually be something that it wasn't before, you know, because maybe a different experience or learning something new. But I think there's always something special because you're taking the time to do something. And I try to encourage people all the time to go back to that song you forgot about, or that one that you thought was crap. And if you still have it laying around, pick it back up, because I guarantee you can turn it into something special.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because I think time away from something is such a good, gives you such great perspective on coming back to something, and you can just hear it instantly sometimes and be like, oh, all it needs is this. Whereas maybe in the moment of originally working on it, you've gone round on it for a week and it's still not quite getting to that point you want it to be. So yeah, man.
Yeah, when I sit down and do writings and everything, and I'll just sit there, and sometimes I'll be there for 2 hours and pulling my hair out, and I have to remind myself to put it aside, get up, walk away, do something else, because when you're diving into something and pouring over it way too much, that's when, you know, bad shit happens and you start to hate yourself, and it's never going to be right. And then all that animosity in yourself and your thoughts come into play and just take on a whole different meaning, and there, you have to get up and fucking know when to walk away.
100%, man. Yeah, I try and do so when we write stuff now, if it's with other people at least, it's normally like we'll do 2 days, and then the last day, and then there'll be a third day where I'm by myself, or me and Callum are together, and we are finishing off the thing we worked on, right? And I have had to put this really strict routine on me when I'm by myself of like, I'll listen through to the track once and make all the notes that come to me in that time, and then just do those notes and not listen to it while I'm doing it, and then go back and listen again and do it. So it kind of ends up there being like at least half an hour between each listen. And I found that is like the only way for me to actually ever get something finished to a point where I feel happy with, because, you know, like maybe sometimes you'll turn the bass down because it feels too loud or whatever, and then an hour later you'll be like, oh, it's the bass too quiet. But being able to see on your notes that like one of the first things you wrote was the bass is too loud is kind of like just a bit of reassurance of like, okay, yeah, I'm not going crazy, I'm just losing a bit of perspective, and I need to trust my initial opinion, and blah blah blah, you know.
And that's also the thing where your first reactions, I always believe people will be like, you're reacting wrong. Like, say any situation, right? But I always believe your first reaction is your truest reaction. So to anything. And even if you step back for a moment and you go back, the first reaction is kind of how you truly felt it.
100%. Yeah. Which is so hard, that from any creative endeavor, I guess that is just trying to put yourself in the audience's perspective, isn't it? And it's really hard to keep that first, that what it feels like to listen to something for the first time.
Yeah. Well, it's also hard to dive into other people's minds and what you like necessarily someone else isn't going to like. And that's the hard part, right? That's what is someone else going to like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of guarantee I try and ignore that thought, right, of are other people going to like this thing I'm working on? But I can guarantee as soon as I sent it, I'll just be going on this like mental spiral of, well, they hate everything I've done, and they've sent it to their team, and their team also hate everything I've done, and there's no way they're going to like this because this is awful. And then it's like, and then as soon as they respond and say if they do or don't like it, it's sort of like all that goes away. But it's like, whenever that starts to come in, those thoughts come in while you're working on it, you're just fucked. There's no coming back from that. I don't think. It's almost like when I start thinking like that, I just like, well, I should just send this because there's no way I'm going to get anything good until I've had sort of some reassurance that I'm on the right path,
Oh, when was that moment the last time you had that reassurance that you were on the right path?
Well, like I said, it kind of is almost every. Well, actually, there's a guy I've been working with who been doing some writing and producing stuff, and he's really new. He hasn't put anything out yet, but he's kind of got a bit of like a team behind him. I think he had some stuff out that came down or blah blah blah, and he'd been doing a bunch of writing sessions, and he came in and was kind of just complaining that everybody was trying to make him sound really pop, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted to make something a bit raw and a bit kind of scruffy sounding, right? And I was really into it, and I loved what we were doing. But then as soon as I sent it, I was like, wait, I've just sent a song to this guy and his team, and all they've got is other songs he's worked on with like pop producers that sound really slick, really clean, and really well done. They're gonna think I just don't know how to put a fucking microphone up. like they're gonna think I don't know what I'm doing at all, and they're gonna apologize to him for ever sending him down. And I was like playing it to my girlfriend, just being like, does this sound like a proper song, or does this sound like I just recorded it on my iPhone? And going crazy. And then he came back and he was sort of like, he was really into it, and said it was like one of his favorite things he's ever done. So we've done a bunch more stuff together since. So it was kind of a nice reassurance of sort of like, okay, yeah, I was just following the original goal and where my taste was. And I'm glad I finished it before I even started thinking like, wait, what are the industry people who hear this gonna think? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the hard thing to judge that against what was done previously and to what you think they're looking for, as opposed to what you think is going to, and I think that's what a producer should be, right? What you think that artist is when you're sitting there and recording and writing with someone. Who is this artist truly? I want to bring out that sound. I don't want to create something in a machine. I don't want to put them on a pop assembly line, right? Who is this artist? Let me bring out the best in them, and that's what will make you successful, right? Because you see what that artist is and truly who they're supposed to be, and you pull out that perfect sound from them.
Yeah, I mean, that is the dream scenario, isn't it? If you can have that, that right combination of someone you see that in and someone who's willing to let you kind of, who that matches with their vision of it all and stuff. And yeah, I totally agree. It's like finding the thing that makes them individual and special, and trying to kind of really purify that and make as much of that as possible.
That's what music is, individuality, right? I think that's how you become successful, is you stand out as yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I don't think that's something that's harder now than it's ever been in the music industry, but I just think that's a thing that is hard to do in general because, if you put on any song in a playlist or on the radio or whatever, they all sound fucking great. So when you're doing something that sounds quite different to it, takes a lot of courage to be like, well, I know this doesn't fit in with what people clearly already like, but I think it's good. And and even at every point in the chain, like, the producer could come in and be like, okay, well, we just need to make this a bit slicker and a bit more sort of commercially viable, and then it dilutes it a bit, and then maybe the label come in and say, oh, we just think it needs to sit in a bit more with what's currently happening over here. And then it just is it's such an easy thing to lose and a hard thing to get.
Yeah, back again to other people telling an artist who or how they should be, right?
Yeah.
Now, moving forward with the band, what is it you're most excited about coming up in the future for what you're doing?
I'm actually just really into the current space we're at, like creatively, because I think for the first time in Bad Sounds, we haven't had to live or die by if Bad Sounds succeeds, because we've Cal plays in another band now, and we both did co-writes, and we've had some other music stuff that's done well. So it's like the pressure is off in anything being a commercially big hit. So it really just feels like a thing for us to do whatever we're most into and try and that's all it's about for us now. Trying to make something that we
the
think
enjoyment's
is really cool.
back in.
Because
the monkey's off your back.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no, it's almost like I feel like all the fear has gone from it. I really don't. It used to really stress me out when a song would come out, because it's like, is it gonna hit certain playlists? Is it gonna do well? Blah blah blah. And obviously that affects how your team can do and you moving forward. But now I genuinely am just like, wow, I'm looking forward to people hearing this and seeing what they think. And that's a really fun space to be. I feel like it's possibly the most carefree we've ever felt with Bad Sounds. So that's kind of what I'm most excited about, and just like writing more around that, which I know is kind of maybe a slightly feels like I've cheated on the answer because I've not really given an actual thing. But
you failed. I have now failed you for that answer. No, I completely understand it. When you're in a different headspace like that, it brings you to that certain clarity, maybe that you were missing previously, because you were putting everything you had into it to try to be this huge successful thing, and now you can step back and you don't have those pressures, and sometimes that's when the magic really happens.
That's definitely how I'm feeling right now. And it's also like I'm kind of okay if it doesn't happen on this batch of songs, because it's like it feels like it's happening in other areas, and I'm sure it will come back at some point. I think I'm just feeling a bit more comfortable with it all.
I'm glad you're there.
Thank you.
All right, here's a tough one. The world's about to end in 5 minutes. Meteor's going to crash into the earth, and you can only listen to one song before you go. What song are you listening to?
Am I aware of this impending doom?
Yes, you're aware of this impending doom. It is you got 5 minutes to live. You can see that big ball of light coming crashing towards the orb that is Earth, and all life will cease to exist. And you have to listen to a song. What are you listening to?
I think I would listen to something like Jessica Pratt or something like This Time Around. Is that the name of the song? Jessica Pratt? Like something very relaxing. And it's just sort of like, okay, well, if I'm going to explode, I want to explode relaxed.
Awesome.
So yeah, maybe that. I don't know. There's sort of like, I feel the first song that ever really like emotionally had a massive effect on me was Stinkfist by Tool. So I thought maybe that.
I mean, that's one way to go out, right?
Yeah. And I'm just looking it up now, and that is 5 minutes and 11 seconds. So that would almost be the perfect length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll go with one of those.
Okay. Hey, listen, you two different spectrums. Hey, you never know what headspace you're actually going to be in at that time anyway. So I'll allow you to.
Exactly. And I've got options there now.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're coming in on an hour here. This has been awesome to have you on the show and chat a little bit about what you're doing. Before we get into our final thing that we do here every week, I'd love to give you this opportunity right now to tell the audience and everyone how it is to find everything that you're doing and keep up with Bad Sounds.
So we've got Instagram and all that stuff. Real Bad Sounds is what that all goes under, and it's just everything's kind of there, I guess. Although Callum runs that, so I don't know what he's posted recently. But there is definitely Bad Sounds content there. But yeah, thank you, man, and thank you very much for having me. It's been very chilled and lovely. I hope I wasn't too convoluted in all of my answers.
No, listen, I'm just going to cut out 90% of the rambling you did and weaving around. No.
Do you know what? A point I didn't make is you actually have the exact same name as the drummer from Uranium, and when I saw the name, I was like, surely not Shane. And then I heard your accent, and I was like, oh no. Definitely not.
Definitely not. Yeah, I work with a vocal coach to get rid of the accent. So, but no, man, this has been awesome. And I'm super excited for you to be in the headspace that you're in with Bad Sounds, and to have that clarity and moving forward, and to not have those pressures is pretty awesome. And I can tell when you talk about it how fulfilling it seems to be now that you don't have to constantly worry and put that pressure on yourself. So I'm happy to see you. That's where you are.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
So right now, we're going into our weekly threes. It's 3 things that you're listening to that you would like people to check out.
Okay. Do they have to be new things?
They don't have to be new things. They can be anythings.
Just
3 things you're listening to.
I'm listening to right now. Okay. I'm just going through things I've saved on my thing. Do you know this guy, Sessa? Is that how you say his name? Sessa.
That's Sessa, yeah.
Sessa. Do you know that guy? Have you heard?
I have not, but this is my favorite part of the show because I get to find all this stuff.
Well, he is very, very sick. It's like Brazilian kind of bossa nova-y type stuff. And I think it came out last year, this album. Yeah, it's just very lovely. It's kind of been like
Estrella Sessa, that album?
Yes. I would definitely highly recommend that. So that's one thing that I'm currently listening to a lot. Sorry, you're gonna have to do some editing here.
No, that's fair. I always put people on the spot because I should probably warn everyone at the beginning of the show to pull up your Spotify playlist or whatever it is you stream your music with nowadays. After we bashed all that stuff throughout the show today. Pull that in and throw everything out here that you're listening to.
Well, okay, so some other stuff. So actually, do you know, I've got really into Bandcamp in the past few months again.
That's where I find all my music. That's where I find everything. That's how I find the artists to be on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's a perfect platform for anyone to throw their music out, and you get to listen to it and weed through the shit. So I spend a lot of time on Bandcamp finding new music.
Yeah, it's like it's like better than going to like a record shop, I think.
Yeah.
It's so, what you said is exactly right. And also I think they're really great at like curating their kind of what's new and blah blah blah, and having little like articles on artists you've never heard of.
Yeah, they do great articles, great lists, they do nice editorials about like sections of like the world, like, hey, here's what's happening in Brooklyn, New York, that here's 5 bands from here that we've really fell in love with recently, like that kind of stuff too, like, hey, here's 5 British shoegaze bands that we're in love with right now, type of stuff. So
yeah, totally, which is amazing because I feel like that is such a hard thing to find now. I really hope Bandcamp just stays exactly how it is forever.
And then they have the Bandcamp Fridays, where the first Friday of every month, all the money goes to the artists that are on there. So
yeah, so sick, isn't it? That's the best. We should just all move over to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so going through my Bandcamp saved thing, there's a song called Hey Mother by Lilla Tristram and the Last Dinosaur. Don't know if you've heard that, but I found that on there and I thought that was very stirring in the best way. And what's this other one? Also, yeah, do you know this girl Carly Malone? I hope I'm saying that right. She's like an organ player who I found on there. This is probably like this is quite like ambient-esque stuff, so maybe not something to put on if you're just wanting like tunes. But I just find it like amazing to put on in the background when you're kind of just like going about doing your life. It's very.
I love background life music.
Yes, me too. But yeah, she's really cool. She does all these like organ pieces, and they're really cool. So awesome. I would recommend that if you've not checked her out.
Well, I got your 3 here to check out. Nice. So now my 3 in no particular order.
Oh, yeah.
So the first one is a band called Bi-Curious. The album is called Reconstructed. They're an experimental 2-piece from Dublin. Just hard hitting experimental music, just really cool. And that's kind of like that background to life music, no lyrics, just good music sitting in the background.
Nice.
Next is Absinthe Father. And I'll spell that for people so you can find it. It's ABSINTHE Father. The name of the album is Moving Forward. They are a shoegaze indie band from California with just a brilliant female vocalist that just drags you in and keeps you there for the length of the entire album. And last but not least is a band called Shoreline. Now, when looking this up, it's going to be tough because there's The Shoreline, there's Shoreline Band, there's Shoreline, but the band is called Shoreline, one word. The name of the album is Growth. They are a German indie post-hardcore punk band, and I don't think those descriptions do it justice of what they do. It's just great rock music. So those are my 3 for this week.
Oh, nice, man. I will check those out. I also feel very like you had these prepped, and I feel like I wish I could I ran through mine as classily as you just did.
I have to be prepped. I am the host. I have to be prepared, right? I have to prepare for every episode a certain way. And the 3s are very important to me because it it's bringing other people to the forefront, not just the person that's on the show, because there's so much amazing music out there that doesn't get what I feel they deserve in terms of listens and likes and people knowing who they are. And that really is what the show is all about. Hidden Tracks, we were called that for a reason, because we're trying to give everyone an opportunity to have their time and their space and their place in the musical world where we feel everyone belongs. So I gotta be ready to do this stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. Also, looking this up, that Shoreline Growth, that's a very cool cover as well.
Yeah.
I'm instantly intrigued.
Well, go and listen to it. I hope you have some new things to listen to. Keep in touch. We love what you're doing. We love what you've already done. And again, I'm very happy that you're in the headspace that you're in currently, because that just means that it makes me excited for what I get to hear from Bad Sounds next.
Oh, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that. And thank you for having me again. It was genuinely a very lovely experience.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. That's what we're here for. We're here to have fun and talk about music. And for everyone out there listening, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out, listen to Bad Sounds, and have a great fucking time.
Too tight to hold. You just let me live. Even though I gave up all that was meant for you. Oh, truth be told, it was never true. So I'm gonna say something I've never said before. Why don't you move into me? Why don't you move into me? I wanna move into you. So why don't you move into me? Never put up a wall, but you bring mine down. And how you let me talk till I come back round. And even though I've been here before, never felt like this. And I feel it more every time we kiss. So I'm gonna say something I've never said before. Why don't you move into me? Why don't you move into me?
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions to myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.